Welcome to the Mechanical PE Exam Prep Podcast, the podcast where I give mechanical engineers like you the tools and motivation to get your professional engineering license and take your career to the next level. In this episode, I talk to professional engineer Kalin Hollingbery about his experience preparing for and passing the HVAC and refrigeration exam on the 6th try. Kalin's persistence is truly amazing, and his story is a perfect example of not only building technical competence, but also personal and professional growth. Anyone retaking the PE exam will be inspired by the advice in this episode. So with that, here's my chat with Kalin Hollingbery. So let's start off, Kalin, with your background. Give us a little bit of a sense of where you started professionally, academically. If you kind of take us from the beginning up until you're deciding that you want to go for your PE.
I was a professional painter of houses and buildings for almost 15 years, give or take a little bit, and realized there's got to be a little bit more to life than slang and paint. So I went back to school and started a junior college in Washington and got my associates and pre-engineering, and went on to my math teacher is the head of the math department there. He suggested I go out for a mechanical engineering and at Washington State University, because that's the best bang for your buck, he says. Anyways, so that's what I did. Let's see, I think it was 3 years there, and I got through my bachelor's. My bachelor's degree is what I got in manufacturing, engineering, and material science. When graduated from there, June of 2015, with I didn't have a job. I didn't have any leads really per se, or no plan. Hadn't done any internships as I painted my way through college, and I have kids, so I, couldn't really afford to not work. Anyways, graduated, in my final project there, got laced up with this engineer who went around the table with my final project group, and he said, who doesn't have a job? And I was the only one that raised my hand out of the six of us. And he said, really? He said, here, I'm going to give you some of my buddy's number. And it was this fellow named Jim Cundiff, who was an MEP engineer in Portland, Oregon, South Portland. Been doing it for a long time. He gave me his contact information, and I called him. And he's super, super awesome, nice guy, Jim was, and him and his twin brother, Lee. Jim was mechanical and Lee was electrical engineers, ran their own Cundiff Engineering. For a long time, did a lot of prestigious jobs and projects and some real cool stuff. I had never, being a painter, I always made it a point to stay away from HVAC and plumbing. Now look at me now, right? So I ended up designing, mostly doing their CAD work and just kind of hanging around, on their hip and learning all that I could like a sponge.
So you started your bachelor's a little bit later and got through that whole process and started with these guys. You were already
right away, right out of school. 2015, right? So 2015, I graduated, went to work at Cundiff Engineering, and they took me under their wing. And Jim was kind of like my engineering dad, He just passed away last year, but unfortunately, he taught me a lot, and he's the one who had me focused and fixed on, you got to get your PE. You got to get your PE. You're going to do this. Once you get your PE, the sky's the limit for you in this office.
So PE wasn't even really on your radar, and once you started working for Jim, he was like your mentor, and he said, this is something you should focus on.
Yeah. Well, I could tell right away he was doing stuff right. He made a ton of money, but he also, had a good, family life and a good balance. And I worked at Cundiff's for about 3 years until I felt like I was being pinned as the new guy still after 3 years, and for whatever reason felt like I should not be that anymore. I was ready for more and keep going, and I got swooned away by a headhunter, who promised, the grass is greener and we'll give you some more money. And it wasn't even very much more, but it was, at the time, it was more. And in 2015, I first started with Cundiffs at 51,000 a year. And,
Okay.
that was a while ago now, almost 10 years, right? So keep that in consideration. But then I got swooned away from Cundiffs it was 73,000.
Okay.
So this was 3 years in to being an engineer. And I worked that job for a while, got to see some other perspectives
Was
and
it
ways.
similar work?
It was MEP. It's another design firm in Portland. Actually, a long-standing one that Jim Cundiff and Lee had both worked for in the past, believe it or not,
Ah,
back in the day. And actually, yeah,
it's a
um,
small industry, I'm sure. Not
it's a
just in
small
Portland,
area.
right?
Yeah,
In a given
well,
area.
I'm sure other cities are similar. Yeah, you get an
Yeah.
engineering, circle, and that's what it is. It's some people come and go, and you see each other and you deal with each other across work. But MFIA was the company, Morris Finitaki and Associates or something, some guys' names, and it was cool. I wasn't what I was looking for though for the long term, and so I moved on after that. I got laid off from there actually about a year and a half in there. So now we're about 2019, 2020, and I got kind of a rough. Like I bought a house and then got laid off from MFIA, so it was
Oof.
really hard. I had 3 months of looking for work, and at the time it was not. There was none, it seemed, and um, but I finally locked in on something. At another little design firm.
It was a tough time too. Sorry to interrupt with the
Yeah,
pandemic because
yeah,
2019, 2020, everything's
yeah.
slowing down and you're looking for
2019,
a new
yeah,
role.
yeah. 2020 was pandemic hit, right? April-ish,
Yeah.
I think. So yeah, I'm almost there. I went to work, yeah. So it's the end of 19 or so, and got hired at another place, Bradford Engineering, real a semiconductor company's campuses. But I wasn't there long because I got a job commissioning because I think I told you before, Dan. I sitting in those design rooms, those design offices, and this looks cool. And I'm doing in Revit, and I like Revit a lot. I'm actually looking at it right now, right here. But I asked some of the folks, are you sure that's going to work? About a mechanical room full of ductwork piping, and they look at me and they say, I don't know. And that was that was kind of hard. And so I had to get out there and figure out how to see the stuff, I guess, right,
Mm.
firsthand. So I went to commissioning and got a job commissioning. Yeah, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit like 2 months later, and I knew nothing of commissioning or how it worked, or I'd never even heard of it before, much at all, really, to be honest. But as you know, it's the other end of the spectrum from design. It's the handing off of the finished building and to the owners and operators. But so there I was at about the same salary as I had left off design work of 73 or so thousand. Worked my way up the ladder and got on with a better company after my first year of commissioning, and then got a little bit more money. I wasn't seeing the pay increase that I wanted to. Oh, and this is where I got my PE. Finally, I locked in on, I got a job commissioning. I'm working for a good company where people are also going for their PEs, and there's also a design side to the company I was at doing commissioning. So, and they were all, a few of the designers in particular were real helpful, and and we didn't have like study sessions, but one of them, she gave me like all her, her study guide and all this other stuff. And I hired
Mm.
Dan Malloy, which was a big key to this whole thing
But
to help.
just to keep it sequential, before you
Yeah.
came to me,
Hmm.
you had taken the exam,
Yeah. Do you want me to
right?
tell you about those? Yeah.
Well, I just want to give folks kind of the sequence because so getting your PE was on your radar for many years. You had to get
Yes.
the experience.
And I
At some
got, yeah,
point, you started taking some shots,
yeah, yeah, not long before we talked, but I did pass the FE. I know that's not what you're asking about. The FE, my second year at Cundiffs in like 2016. And it took me two shots and I passed it the second time. And then I was just trying to get the years in, that were needed to get to do the PE. I didn't know that I could take the test right then and there. And that was a big,
mm.
I wish I would have done it, while I was fresh in the head on testing and stuff. But whatever, it didn't work out like that. So I think my first swing, my wife signed me up. She was tired of hearing me whine and bicker about, I want to do the PE. I want to do the PE. I got to
I
do
think
it.
you did tell me this, but I
Yeah,
forgot this part of the
yeah.
story. So she signed you up.
She signed me up, registered me online, paid the bill for it, and then looked at me and said, Kalin, you're taking the PE in 2 weeks. I said,
Two
what?
weeks.
2 weeks? I said, people laugh if you try and do it in 2 months or, a year. I mean, it's like, it's going to take a little more than that, babe. Oh, you can do it. I know you. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I studied my, what's off for a couple weeks and went in there and I didn't, I did pretty bad. I think it was pretty, but so that was what, 2020, was it 2020 maybe? Like, it took me, well, and I don't even count that one, but I have to.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's fair, right? I mean, two
Yeah.
weeks, it is something that you wanted to do, but you weren't planning on doing it. Yeah,
I
I
didn't
too.
want to fail it. Right. I
Of
mean,
course not.
you
Yeah.
don't want to
All
fail.
right. So
So,
so that was like, that was one.
yeah.
Then what
So,
happens?
then I got real mad and I really started studying and I searched for anything I could find to help me pass it online. And that's when I came across your name and I believe in your website. And I said, heck with it, I'm going to do it. So I think we hired you. I think I paid money and got going on your stuff. And I picked and chose through your stuff the first time. I didn't do this and I don't like to do those. So I'm not going to do those ones that are, that's so hard. That's not going to be on the test. Well, that's a dumb thing to say because that's the thing that's going to be on the test. And
I love your honesty, right? Because this is an experience that is not at all unusual for candidates where they
yeah,
look at study material, doesn't have to be mine, and they
sure.
cherry pick because they
Yeah,
think I need this, I don't need that, or I'm good at this, I'm not good at that, or that's high probability, right? As opposed to, just trusting the process. But, it also is a bit not obvious what process you should trust
right.
because who can you trust? Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's the second time.
Failed it again. I think I did a little bit better, maybe, but not much. And so I haven't. Not only have I been, dead set on getting it for a few years, but now my cojones are in the game, basically, and I don't. And I'm not a very good quitter. So signed up for it again. I think immediately. A couple months down the road, a few months, I gave myself, I think, and studied your stuff, studied the practice books, the problems online. I think I even bothered. I think I pestered you with some questions too, a handful of times,
Yeah.
and which you're great and answer for me. And took it again, failed it again, and I think I took it 2 times in 2021, and maybe 3 times, and then because after the second shot, I did the same thing again. This time, I think I did. I went less than a few months away. I think I went just a handful of maybe 1 month out, and I
Hmm.
and I tried it again, failed it again. Uh, so and I did that. How many more times? I did that 2 more times. I think I failed it 5 times until when was I think it was March of last year, 2023. I guess I had studied enough finally, and I went in there and I took it. And I think the difference maker, the aside from just getting serious about it and putting everything else, aside while I had to do that, which was hard, with kids and family in the home and how, the house and work, and really hard and having babies and stuff.
Yeah, you passed in March and you had a child in May.
May, end of May. Yeah.
So maybe that
Yeah.
was the fire. But what were you gonna say? What was the
Well, and
difference maker?
I was going to refer to my, at the time, what she was 2 year old, 1.5 year old, also was, running around chomping at my ankles and just made it tough, and yeah, the difference maker on this final attempt, man, was I kept, I'm kind of a hothead, right? I kind of have a temper. My wife will be the first to tell you, but this last attempt, I kept my cool through the end. I used up all the time this time, and I went back and I reviewed and on problems that were super tough, and before I just B or C, or just get
Yeah.
out of my face. You can't do that like that. You gotta shake it off and keep trying. That's the only way. That's how I passed it. Even when I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to take it again, and you know, no, I just, for whatever reason, finally I got it, that you just can't give up. So
Awesome.
there was,
Absolutely amazing.
you know,
The
and I was,
persistence, right? Going through the process, having little things that you notice that you improve on the next time. And I think the thing that I want anyone listening to take away from this is not just the persistence. I think that's a huge component here,
mm,
but it's the corrections that you make along the way as you observe your own study process. Because we think what we're doing is learning enough mechanical engineering knowledge and skills to pass an exam, and we are. But actually, what we're doing is learning or relearning how to study if we haven't done it in a while. And that is much more introspective, right? We're looking at our own psychology, our own emotions. You mentioned that, you can be a little bit hot-headed, maybe a little bit impatient, but we're corralling that. So there's a very emotional component to this. And then there's our circumstances, which you talked about, family life and time
yeah,
challenges. And it all kind of converges on this one big problem that is, how do we get ourselves ready?
yeah,
And the journey is different for everyone, but man, I love your story because 5 times, you say, I'm not a great quitter. So I'm going to keep going. And I'm pretty sure if you hadn't worked out that day, you would have continued to keep going because I know you were not going to stop until you got what you wanted.
nope, nope. I'd spent enough money, I decided, I guess, and yeah, I wouldn't have done it. I'm thankful, very thankful, for you, Dan, and your program, and and myself, that I didn't give up.
As you
Because,
should be. You should be very proud. I tip my cap to you.
sir, thank you very much.
I'd love to hear about, after you passed, what changed, if not right away, what's been your progression since then, and
Yeah,
what do you see for the future?
yeah, yeah. So, as I said, I was commissioning for a few handful of years, and I was commissioning when I got the PE last March of 23, and unfortunately, at the time, unbeknownst to me, a PE isn't really required for commissioning. Although, of course, it helps. It's everybody, it's good to have those letters after your name, and it shows persistence, like you said. But with commissioning, it's not required. So, I didn't see any increase in pay like I was hoping for, or like anyone would hopefully hope for. And one of my biggest goals in all this stuff, become an engineer and all that, is I know it sounds materialistic and cheesy, maybe even foolish a little bit, but I wanted to make six figures, and the six-figure salaries I wanted, and I'm not sure. Part of the learning experience, though, and they had me just under that. They wouldn't. I asked for a bump in pay to that. They wouldn't do it in the commissioning. So I got called out of nowhere by another headhunt. He was gathering interviewees for a company whom I went and sat with, and one morning, and really cool guys. It's actually a mechanical plumbing contractor company here in
Okay.
Portland area. They do good work. I've seen them work around them in the commissioning stuff, and they offered me a job as an in-house PE designer with one other guy, because they're trying to do a branch offshoot of design work in that office, and so it's just me and this other fella whom I worked with in the design world
Ah,
somewhere. We crossed paths somewhere, and they offered me the money that I wanted, and I started just 3 weeks ago now.
oh,
I'm
wow.
three
Well,
weeks in. So
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. It's just awesome. All the work's paid off, man. I don't know what else to say. It's
Well, that's a perfect way to close the loop. And I want to circle back too. I think to have a compensation target for yourself, I think that's ambition, especially when you have family. I think a lot of engineers can relate to that, and even younger engineers who aren't yet at that stage in life. There's nothing wrong with having ambition for your career, and compensation is very much part of that. There are other parts too. And
sure.
in your story, I like, I mean, there's a continuous progression as you go throughout from your educational background all the way to now. But what I
Mhm.
notice is starting with the design work, but asking some questions about, hey, is this going to work, right? Having that curiosity for like, what's going to happen in the field when somebody actually tries to build this? Here are
Okay.
some burning questions that I'm having, and then you look around and nobody near you wants to put their, make a statement and try to answer that question. Fast forward, you go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and now you're the guy in the field dealing with all the problems, which
Mhm.
informs all of the earlier design decisions that you experienced earlier, that some of which may have been sensible, others which might have been automatic, but perhaps not as sound as they could have been, right? So now you're putting those two bits of experience together in your current role and saying, okay, I have some ownership over the design, but I know how it's actually going to play out in real life. And now you can oversee a bigger remit, which is why you can command a six-figure salary where that may not have made sense earlier on. But every step of the process, I think you've done the work, you've earned your way, and now you have the reward at the end. And to be honest, even this is another stepping stone because you're going to have a progression where you are now as well. So, I mean, it all comes full circle.
That's right. It does.
So, Kalin, what advice would you offer to other candidates who, they for whatever reason didn't pass on the first try, maybe didn't pass on the second try, maybe even multiple attempts? Like if I'm that person, what do you tell me? Is it more about what I'm doing? Is it more about the way I'm thinking? Like, what do I need to hear that's gonna kind of get me over the hill?
I don't know. I think that probably varies with everybody, you know. But I would just say, man, just don't give up. I say don't give up and take it easy on yourself too. Don't beat yourself up.
Mm,
Uh,
that's a great one.
that could be a killer, for myself.
Love it.
Don't give up.
All right. I think that's a
That's about all.
that's a perfect place to put a pin in it. Thank you
About the
so much.
wisest, about the wisest thing I could say about all
I agree. Well,
that.
thank you so much for coming on, Kalin. It's
Anytime.
been great. And
Yeah.
look forward to hearing what comes next for you. Thanks for listening to the Mechanical PE Exam Prep Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review to help other engineers find the podcast. And if you're looking for a program that will help you pass the PE exam, check out the full access bundle available at mechanicalpeexamprep.com, and feel free to reach out with any questions. I would be honored to be your guide on the journey to becoming a professional engineer.